It is Shane Beamer, the head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. It is National Championship Monday. It is Inauguration Day. It is MLK Day. Coach is here. Did I miss anything? Because this is a hell of a day for us to decide to kick this thing off. What else is going on today? Is there something else? Winter weather update day? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know you're talking to me.
No. I'm asking you. Did I miss anything? Because we decided to start this today, and I was like, wait a second.
It's a new week of recruiting, so trying to figure out travel plans with incoming weather and school delays and closures. So that's a challenge. So that's what it is as well.
Dude, yeah, it's and everybody's off. So when we were setting this up last week, and I have to say this, and I know that you'll agree wholeheartedly, the best SID in the country resides in Columbia, South Carolina. That is none other than the great Steve, or Coach Fink, as a lot of people like to call him. But he was, hey man, we're not going to be there, so you got to get the links to me. He wants it all right, because he's scared to death you weren't going to be able to pull up a link and just click the audio and the video button.
I know, obviously. But you know what I had to do, though? I was like, you're right about Steve, and I told Steve I'm worried about this because nobody's going to be in the office to set it up because it's a holiday. But I was actually smart enough when I clicked on it, I had to copy and paste and go to Safari and paste it in there and then open it up in Safari as well. So I took a big step today, technologically myself.
Safari still works? I haven't used that in years. Well, man, good to see you. How's your family doing?
Everybody's good. Appreciate you asking. New Year's off to a good start, and everyone's doing well. Hope everything's good on your end as well.
Yeah, they're good, man. They're good. Now, of course, off today, and then they'll be off for 3 or 4 days because of the chance of ice. So we'll begin to get a little crazy in this household. But well, so here we are. The season is now almost completely over for college football. Tonight they'll play the final game, and y'all haven't played in about 3 weeks. So now that you've had a chance to digest it, looking back on the previous 4 months of football, give me a description of this year's version of South Carolina.
Resilient for sure. Just really, really proud of our players and just how close they were, how connected that team was in 2024. Very, driven to have the season that we had. Didn't get off to the start that we wanted when we're sitting there at 3-3 with 2 heartbreaking losses by a total of 5 points, and then just the leadership and the togetherness to come together and win 6 in a row. To finish the season. And that doesn't happen unless you've got great leadership and great people in your program. And that's exactly what we had.
On that note, I don't know if you remember this or not. After the Ole Miss game, you and I connected just for a brief moment. And you told me, man, we had an incredible week of practice. I know you were incredibly disappointed with the performance, but you said something. You said, I'll get it right. And then y'all went to Tuscaloosa and probably should have won the game, almost won the game. Not many people take the Tide to the brink of a loss on their home field, as you know. And then after that, you didn't lose again. Mm-hmm. So coming out of that game, what did you feel like wasn't right or wasn't going in the right direction, and what did you do to change it?
Certainly you look at some of those games and didn't play great football, didn't coach great football, particularly in the Ole Miss game. But I also think you realize it's a long season, and coming out of Ole Miss, I was aware that, we had a quarterback that was going to continue to get better, but was still very, very, very inexperienced at that point. We played Old Dominion. The Kentucky game, talking about Lenoris, the Kentucky game, there was a period during that game where he got knocked out from an injury standpoint. So he didn't play the complete game against Kentucky. Then what we have after that, LSU, he didn't play the second half. Akron was the next game. He didn't play at all. So really Ole Miss was the first SEC game that he played from start to finish as well. Right. Not to mention, that's a really, really good defense Ole Miss had last season that we were going up against. And we had our opportunities and certainly some, decisions I'd like to have back and some plays that we'd like to have back. But I don't think it was anything big, just, completely blow it up and do something different after the Ole Miss game. It was just understanding, guys, it's the way you practice during the week, it gives you the opportunity to now go play well and hopefully win the game. But now you got to go do the things in the game that it takes to win. And that's not, playing losing football, not having dumb penalties and not turning the ball over and not getting sacked and not busting coverages and had a little bit of all that in some of those losses. And our team was very driven to finish the season the way we did. But one thing I told the leaders on the team was that's great that you want to win the rest of these games, but we've got to start, we got to perform better. And to see old expression, you can't win games until you learn how not to lose them or whatnot. And, we just continued to get better and played cleaner football down the stretch.
Yeah, the Lenoris note I think is so important, right? When you look at everything you just said is so true. If people put themselves in the minds of any college athlete, especially a quarterback or a starting pitcher or a point guard or somebody that is going to be valuable to the overall success of the team, and there's inconsistency in how much they're playing, not inconsistency in play. That's going to happen, right? But if you're not out there all the time, especially when you're young,
yeah.
So like on that note, if you go back to Old Dominion and then you go to the end of the season with Lenoris, explain that it's the whole season. So, but his growth, like in your eyes and in your coach's eyes, Coach Loggins and Coach Shula and everybody else, what was that progression like? Like how was he a different player in week 12 from week 1?
Yeah, I think just that, like you just said, he continued to become more and more comfortable and confident with everything that we were doing. And he was a first-time starter. Yes, he played in 3 games last year or 4 games in 2023, whatever it was, but he's still a freshman last year, and he's still a freshman this year, essentially, playing in the toughest conference in America. And we knew that he would continue to get better as the year went, and that's what exactly, what he did. I think, schematically, it wasn't like we did a bunch of new stuff every week. We did basically the same concepts in the run game and pass game, essentially week to week, and just dressed it up each week with formations, personnel groupings, motion, whatever it might be. And then the other thing too, that I think I mentioned this before the season some, but that receiving core, there was a lot of newness to that as well. And when it comes to a quarterback, you better have that compatibility connection with those receivers. And, we had 3 receivers that were in our rotation this year that weren't even a part of spring practice with Lenoris, and that being Dale Von Campbell and Vandravius Jacobs, who they didn't transfer to us until after spring practice. They didn't get here until June. And then Nick Harbor was doing track last spring. So those are 3 of your top, 6 receivers, 7 receivers that weren't here during spring practice. And it takes some time just to develop that connection and rapport. And the offensive line, we had some newness there as well. And we've certainly got to be better because we're going to have the same issue this upcoming season with a lot of new faces also. But I think it's just one of those, you're playing in the toughest conference in America. And we had the opportunity to win games in the first half of the season. And we just couldn't quite get over the hump, but we just all continued to get better, not just Lenoris, but the entire football team and coaching staff.
Dude, the ball that he threw to Campbell in the bowl game, that ball was in the air for like 70 yards. Yeah. Like, how far have you seen him actually throw the football in the air? Can he throw it further than that?
He can throw. I don't want to say that's his max, and then he gets mad at me. But no, you're right. He's immensely talented and will just continue to get better. Coach Shula did an awesome job with him, working with him, and Mike's a guy that's played the quarterback position and helped Lenoris throughout the year, and he'll continue to help him has continued to get better as we go into 2025.
Yeah, what's the comparison and the compare and contrast version of Coach Shula and Coach Loggins? Like, is there Is there anything there? Is there any way to explain that? Is it more of the same? What is it?
Yeah, great question. It's hard to say. I think they're both good people and both really knowledgeable coaches. Their backgrounds in the NFL, and I thought Dow and our offensive staff did a nice job this past season of really with the run game of just we were different in the run game this season than what we were in 2023. That obviously Norris is more of a running threat than Spencer is as well. So we had some more quarterback design runs, and they did a good job from that standpoint. And Mike throughout the season did a great job. He was in every single quarterback meeting with Dow and the rest of the quarterbacks. And Mike, as people know, was the guy on the sidelines that was in Norris's ear and watching the iPads between series. And when we hired Mike last season or earlier this year, I was, intrigued and interested in him for a lot of reasons, personally, professionally, but most recently, just the fact that he had worked with Cam Newton, Daniel Jones, and Josh Allen, all big athletic quarterbacks that can use their legs as well as their arm. And we were able to implement some of that. And then the fact that, I think Mike, the fact that he played quarterback in the SEC, so he's been in Lenoris's shoes as well, is a great connection to have. So those guys work together, and I think there's a lot of similarities, but certainly differences in personality. And we'll implement things that are best for the 2025 offense with Mike at the head of it here going forward.
When you went on the road this year, y'all were 4-1. Again, could have, should have, maybe been 5-0 with the 2-point loss in Tuscaloosa. I don't know if you have even looked at the numbers or not, but you outscored your opponents on their home field 136-63.
Wow.
And that's an average of the average margin of victory, 27-13 would be what that would be on the road. Second best record in the league to Texas, who only played 4 true road games because they have to play that stupid Cotton Bowl game every year, But in the past few years, I know you had some moments after tough road losses where you're like, I don't know what's going on. Almost, we're just not getting off on the right foot. You had some road wins. I mean, you did beat Clemson up there in 2022. You like coaching in that ballpark. But did anything like it? Did you make any adjustments to this year when you travel or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. I knew we were good on the road. I didn't know we were quite that good.
Dominant.
There's nothing like, being on the road and the game is in hand and you're sitting there in the opposing team stadium and it's starting to empty and the only people there are the garnet and black that made the trip, and then going in a visiting team locker room and celebrating and getting on that plane or bus. I mean, Williams-Brice is awesome, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's just it's a special, special thing being able to go on the road. And I think it's a culmination of things. You're right. You go back to 2021, my first year, we won on the road at East Carolina, but we went down 14-0. We were down 7-0 on the first play of the game. We went to Georgia and, we battled for a half. But then we had 2 road games that year, Texas A&M and Tennessee, where we just got ambushed in the first quarter. And, one thing going back to 2022, one thing we started doing a little bit differently is most teams, when they travel, they get on the plane, they fly where they're going, they land, they go to the hotel, and that's it. And that's pretty much all we had ever done anywhere that I've ever coached. But we just started on Fridays. We just get there a little bit early and we go to the visiting team stadium. We don't really do anything. We literally just walk around for about 10 minutes. But I think I know our players like it. I think that's been good for us, just being able to kind of get the wow factor out of their system. And because some of these stadiums you walk into the SEC, if it's your first time in this league or first time going into that stadium, I mean, there's a wow factor when you walk in there, Williams-Brice included. So let's get that out of the system. Let's let you figure out where your locker is, where the bathroom is, how to get to the locker room from the field, or how to get to the field from the locker room. So we started doing that in 2022, and we've been a little bit better on the road each year. And then I think this year just goes back again to we were a veteran team. You talk about the guys that were leaders on this year's team, Tonka and Boogie and Debo, and and guys like that, Rashawn Lee, it wasn't their first time going to Lexington, Kentucky, or it wasn't their first time going to Clemson, South Carolina. Now it was their first time going to Tuscaloosa and Norman, Oklahoma, but we had a veteran team that they thrived on that. They love going into other team stadiums, and I think when you travel, whether you go Thursday, Friday, whether you go to the stadium, you don't go to the stadium, whatever it is, just trying to keep your routine the same, but just have a veteran group that thrives in that environment. Excuse me, and
Yeah.
that's what we had.
Well, a lot of those guys, as you just pointed out, were on defense. And before the season, Nick and Debo and these guys, Demetrius Knight, and of course back then a lot of people didn't know exactly who he was, and exactly what he was going to do, but found out pretty quick. They were throwing words out like historic and wait and see, and all these things.
Yeah.
And you know how it is, Coach. You hear that stuff. You hear college kids say that, and you're like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. Yep. They weren't wrong, though. I mean, they obviously knew what they had, as you did coming into the year. So now you're in January and you're in winter workouts, and then before you know it, you'll be here in spring ball. And you look at this, you look at your defense, which was by the standards of the University of South Carolina historic. It was fantastic. Starting like with the secondary. I mean, Nick's going to go off to the NFL, but you've got plug and play guys in there. Evaluate that group this season, and then now that some of those guys are departing, where are they here in early winter 2025?
Yeah. We lose a lot of really good players defensively. We lose a lot of leadership. You talk about the heart of your defense, losing your top 3 defensive tackles, 4 if you count DeAndre Jules, and then your top 3 inside linebackers and Bam and Debo and D Knight, and then a safety and Nicky Manwari. So we've got to replace a lot of really good players. We got to replace a lot of leadership on that team from last season, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But when you bring back 3/5 of your secondary and DQ Smith and Judge and Jalen Kilgore, that gives you hope as well. And then we've got, young guys that in the secondary that it's now time for them to take the next step and become a guy. Vakari Swain rotated quite a bit with Judge Collier during late in the season. We want to be able to rotate guys in the secondary. It's time for.
He's fun to watch, man.
Yeah, no question. Vakari's electric, and Emory Floyd and Jalewis Solomon was a true freshman. That it's time for him to take another step. And then we've brought in. There's going to be a battle at safety at opposite DQ. Or really every position's up for, is a competition. But next to DQ, you got Gerald Kilgore and David Busey and Peyton Williams. And then we've brought in some help there in the secondary that has position flexibility at corner / nickel and whatnot. So, and then freshmen coming in. So it's Torian Gray. One thing about him is he can develop guys on the back end. Yep. And it's time to do that again, and excited about that group and for sure in the secondary. So as far as right now, they're off to a great start. We started workouts last week. Classes started on Monday, and we got right to work. So just finished week 1 in the weight room and off to a great start. And we as coaches, we got a couple more weeks on the road recruiting here in the month of January. And then we're able to really jump into workouts with the guys here in February when the coaches get off the road.
I don't know how you do it, man. This portal and all this stuff. You don't even know who you are until you get to August. What about the offense? I mean, you know what's coming, Coach. You've been coaching college football for 25 years. When you got a stud quarterback, you're going to get talked about for 8 months before you get to the season. I mean, hell, your boy Andy Staples has you in the top 10 here in January, so no expectations or anything like that. But what about that offense? Rocket and one of my favorite players I've seen in this program in a long time, Josh Simon. These guys, their leadership and their ability off to the NFL, and you got a bunch of guys in the offensive line, at least on the interior. But from a talent standpoint, knowing what you've brought out in from the portal, knowing what you return, starting with Lenoris, when you look at last year's group and what y'all have been through, and then now in January looking forward, where do you think you are?
Yeah, I think certainly, arrow up for sure from an offense. And you're exactly right. If you look at those preseason rankings, they look at how did you finish the season? What was your record? Does your quarterback return? Okay, bam, you're automatically going to be good. And it's not
Yeah.
that simple, obviously. And we talked about it last week as a team. Just, some of the projections last year for us, we didn't listen to because most of them had us going 3-9. I saw one that had us last year predicted to go 1-7 in the SEC. You know, there was an article last week in a local newspaper where we were predicted to go 10-2, and the same guy that wrote the article predicting us to go 10-2 this season also wrote an article literally last July saying, can South Carolina even be competitive in the new SEC? So things come at you fast. So it'll be important for our guys to not listen to anything and just keep our heads down and work. But offensively, when you have a quarterback, that gives you a chance, and we've got to replace a lot of production in Josh Simon. But excited about that opportunity. We lose Rocket, but we have really high expectations for Jawarn Howell at the running back position. He showed a little bit of that in the bowl game. Oscar Attaway returns. We've added, from the portal as well. Matthew Fuller comes back at the receiving group. So many of those guys come back, and then this receiving class that we've recruited. Mike Furry's done an awesome job as our receivers coach for recruiting receivers. But these 6 receivers we have coming, I think we got a small glimpse of them during bowl practices when they were able to practice with us during the bowl back in December. And we have high expectations for that group as well. And then at the tight end position, we lose Josh, like I said, but being able to bring back Brady Hunt for another year, and Mike Smith, who's got a huge upside, and portal wise, bringing in Jordan Dingle from Kentucky and Mike Tyler from the high school recruiting class. And on the offensive line, when you bring back both tackles, who I think are really, really talented in Casey Henry and Josiah Thompson, that gives you a chance. And we lose a lot of production in the interior of our offensive line, just like the defensive line, losing Torricelli, Simpkins, Kamar Bell, and Rashawn Lee. But we knew that, and that was priority number one for us in the transfer portal, was to bolster the interior of the offensive line. And I think we've brought in some really talented players, and early signs after the first week in the weight room is that these guys are very, very professional and driven, like last year's crew was.
What do you carry, like 17 or 18 offensive linemen somewhere in there?
We try and be right at 17. Yeah, absolutely. And I think scholarship-wise, we're technically not even there still, just from a depth standpoint, because we saw what happened on the offensive line with injuries 2 years ago. So 17 is the number that we want to work off of, and like where we are right now, but you never have enough at that position.
What'd you think about the special teams unit this year, Coach? And I know that's your deal. You hired one of the best in Joe DeCamillis. I know there's probably some frustrating moments in there, but y'all certainly once again had some magical moments too.
Yeah, we did. There were certainly some frustrating moments, and made some big plays on special teams, but then also certainly some plays that we weren't at our best, and we'll be better with year 2 under Joe's leadership, and we've got to get better in the return game. There's no question about it. We just didn't make much happen, punt return or kickoff return this year as well. Kai Kroger, did a great job as our punter, and it's going to be very new. I mean, we're going to have a new long snapper, a new punt returner, a new kick returner, a new punter, and a new kicker next year as well. And so you're replacing all of that, and you may have to rely on a true freshman potentially as well. So that'll be a big challenge. But it's same, just like offense and defense. Excited about the newness of it and the prospects that we have.
All right, I'm gonna get you out of here in just a couple of minutes. I'm breaking my rule on making Whittle wait, but
Whittle will understand. He's taking notes on this right now anyway, probably. So
that's right. That's right. You're our version of David Cloninger today. You get the first question. I always wonder, how does DC get the first question every single time?
Yeah, he's slipping something on the side to think. I think,
dude, he's a magician with that stuff. All right, I have to, and if you want to avoid any of it, you just tell me to shut my mouth. But I have to go back to the bowl game and what happened on the field. But I'm going a little bit different. I'm, not I'm not going to post a meme of you or something like that. Like some of that went viral, by the way. Some of these memes they had of you. All right, so because this does have to do with special teams, which is what we found out a little bit later. But so in the game, it's the third quarter, and after this game, when we were on the air, Coach, I was trying to put myself in your shoes to think how you would think in that moment, being in charge of 100 guys trying to win a football game and a huge ball game, everything that's on the line, 10 wins, et cetera, et cetera. So in that moment, y'all have been tackled on the defensive line. Nothing was called. There were jerseys that were stretched 2 and 3 feet. That's called holding, but they didn't feel like throwing the flag there. I'm saying this, you're not saying this. They faked injuries throughout the contest. We've seen that before, but it continued to happen. They played the clock with the substitutions, and it worked. It's legal, but all these things are frustrating. And then, y'all have some things on your side, right? Missed some throws at Lenore's, generally hits. You had a fumble. You got the news about Nick. And then this moment happens where they actually have a legitimate injury on the sideline. And I'm watching you. I'm holding my daughter, by the way, who did say in that moment, she calls you Mr. Shane because she's heard me talk about you.
Yep.
So she said, Mr. Shane is mad at that boy. Which was,
she was right.
I said, I said, Mr. Shane's going to be okay. But so I'm watching you, Coach, and you go out of your way. You walk down the sideline, walk out on the field, check on the Illinois player. You don't have to do that. And you tap him on the helmet. You walk back to the sidelines. Coach Bielema takes his time to get across the field, almost like a baseball manager. I'm going to go talk to my pitcher, but I don't have anything to say. I'm just waiting until the umpire comes out so I can tell him the strike zone sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And then he turns around and taunts you and your sideline, and then admits to it afterwards. But in the moment, where were you in the moment before that he even did that? And then after he did that, I know you didn't know exactly what it was all about at the time, but like after everything that had transpired in the game, where were you upstairs in this football game?
Yeah. Certainly frustrated with some things that had happened at that point as well. Some our own doing and some outside our control, to say the least.
Jeez.
And so there was some frustration at that point, which there's no question I need to be better about, not maybe showing that frustration as much. But at that point, I was in a good place. I felt like we had, something going and had a little bit of momentum. And we knew it was going to be a close game, a dogfight. They were a 9-win team that had 2 close losses and a blowout to Oregon. And we knew it was going to be a close game. And that's what bothered me at that point, was when he came over and did that, did this, but then gave me one of these as well, which I just took as a sign of disrespect towards our sideline, because I've never seen a coach do that. And I would have respected it a lot more if, while he's over there checking on his injured player, just come over there to me and say, hey man, what the heck? And tell me you got a problem with it. But it was the actions with his arms and then just turning and walking back across the sideline that bothered me. And it wasn't like I was going to run out there to midfield and we were going to like have a brawl at the 50-yard line. I wasn't like losing my mind from that standpoint, but really just, hey, what's your deal? And let's if there's a problem, come talk to me about it. Don't do that, because what we did was legal, and what we did, we cleared with the officials before the game. And I saw some of his comments after the game about, it's a safety issue and ethical, and I thought that was complete, total bull crap. We, as a special teams coach, we've never told our players on a kickoff team to watch the returner, and if he puts his arms out, to quit running. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you play through the whistle, and
there you go.
And give credit to their guy. Like, he continued to play through the whistle, and heck, I was probably more frustrated because we blocked it like crap. And it's something we have been working on literally since probably the end of October, and we were going to run it against Clemson. but we just never got an opportunity to. So we had been working it throughout the month, and we didn't do a great job blocking it. I'm mad we got 26 yards out of it. That's probably what I was most frustrated about, because if we just block it like we're supposed to, it may freaking score. So I was frustrated about that. But you mentioned the baseball manager. Maybe, I don't know, I may have been a lot like a basketball coach that purposely gets the technical foul just to kind of motivate the team, and not that the team needed me to motivate them that way. But there's no question it electrified, our sideline, but certainly electrified the stadium as well. And it was disappointing, but I do appreciate this. So the amount of people that, because I didn't like the way it looked. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't, but I do appreciate the number of people that have either come up to me in public or texted me after the game or called me after the game saying what you did was right, man. I wasn't a Gamecock before, but I am now. And whether it be athletic directors across college athletics, or former coaches that are in the College Football Hall of Fame, or current coaches that were in the college football playoff this year, or Florida Gator fans or Tennessee Vol fans or whatever, which, I appreciate that. Wish it hadn't happened, but it is what it is. And I'm always going to have the backs of our players in our sideline. And I just thought that was, Bush League, what he did to our sideline. And I'm not telling you, I've told him the same thing after the game as well, but it's disappointed, but credit to them. They won the game, and more motivation for us as we go into 2025.
Well, you see, you hit the nail on the head, because we talked about that on, at least on this program. I haven't heard it discussed anywhere else. You played through the whistle.
Yeah.
Number one. Okay. If the whistle didn't, I don't give a crap. I mean, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. You play through the whistle, number one. Number two, if you're that concerned about injuries, then why are you running your guy back in the next play after he drops in the middle of the field?
Yeah.
I mean, none of this made any sense. And to your point, like, I did think, who cares that you got heated? It's not like there's some history of Shane Beamer showing his ass every other ball game on the field. It head coaches and players, you have zero history of that.
Right.
So for you to get that heated, I think was alarming to a lot of people. Like, something happened here, and you were in the right. But I did want to ask about that, because to that point, there were so many frustrations in that game. But at the end of the day, you're 9-4. You finish the season 9-4, and as we pointed out the other day, in the last 12 years or something, that's 2 more 9+ win seasons than Auburn.
You said
I said it. You didn't say that. I said that. Coach, you knocked on the door of the playoffs. Obviously, I probably should have been in there based on what you did this year, but you didn't get in. Final quick, kind of a two-parter, same question here. Your thoughts on the system now that we've seen it play out, and who do you like tonight? Obviously, Mitch is playing in the game tonight. I'm not sure if y'all spoken or not, but who do you like in the ball game?
Mitch, we haven't spoken. He actually texted me after one of our games this year, maybe after the Missouri game, I think. Missouri or Clemson won. He sent me a text message saying congratulations and how much it's fun we've been to watch. As far as the system, I like the system. I think we certainly, like a lot of people have said, we need to look at the buys. I don't understand a system where a team gets a buy and then is a double-digit underdog in their first game playing. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'm not knocking Boise or Arizona State. They won their conferences, but a system where you get a bye but then become immediately a 2-touchdown or double-digit underdog, something's off with that. So how do we make that adjustment? And then as far as tonight goes, it would be hard to pick against Ohio State the way they're playing in the playoffs right now. There's no question about it. They're playing really, really well in all three phases. But at the same time, the little bit that I've seen of Notre Dame, they're just a team that just finds a way to win, and they just hang around. They're a team that obviously has great belief in one another and Coach Freeman, and think a lot of him after playing him in the bowl game a couple years ago. So hopefully it's a great game. Always tough watching these games when you're not playing in them. As a competitor, you want to be there, and that's why I'll be in a high school early tomorrow morning working to bring in new Gamecocks, so we can be in that game here one day soon.
Didn't get a chance to catch up on Coach Tanner, but we'll do that down the road as he's celebrated over the next month and things like that. The guy who hired you, who's, I think, the best Gamecock ever.
Yep.
We'll talk about him somewhere else when we can get you back on. I did this again. I told Fink 20 minutes, and here we are 35 5 minutes.
Yep.
So sorry about that, man.
I'll handle Fink. You just make sure John Whittle's not mad at me.
Yeah, I know. I don't know who's worse when they get upset. Hey, thanks for all that you do. Always appreciate your time. You know, I don't know if anybody knows this, but for 4 years, over 4 years, you anytime I've ever asked you, you always come on. We try to stay out of your way as much as we can, but it does mean a lot, and really appreciate what you do for all of us here, and certainly for the Gamecocks in the state of South Carolina. Man, give our best to Emily and all of your kids, and hopefully they get to enjoy some snow.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate you and all you do, and best of luck with the new format, and keep up the great work.
Get the golf game going.
We're trying,
Get the golf
man.
game
It's
going,
almost
man.
time.
All right.